What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Josh of the Almighty Ivy. Thank you so much for being here today, man. It's great to be able to talk with you.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so cool to have you here with the new album being Obsidian. This is a really mesmerizing album, and one thing I was always curious about is when I listened to your whole catalog of everything you have done, it does sound very organic and it does like really capture a moment. Is there ever like a preconceived idea of what you want a song or even an album to sound like, or is it very experimental and mainly rooted in sort of like the subconscious in a way?
No, definitely the first. I generally kind of think of an idea or an aesthetic or a storyline or something, and then kind of write with that in mind. Obsidian was based on a score that I did just for it was a documentary for the making of Darren Aronofsky's mother. Um, so it's kind of weird. It's like it's a score, but it's just for like a 30-minute documentary. So I kind of took those themes from for Obsidian and kind of turned them into songs. And then yeah, with like Grinding Teeth and Zero Sleep, those two they're like two different records on the same release. Um, they each have like their own stories. One is also like another adapted score, and then one I wrote to this insane music or a news story that I found where this old guy busted his wife out of a nursing home and then they smoked a bunch of crack and listened to Quiet Riot and had sex and basically and then she died at home and then the cops busted in and so
That's that's
so
that's like the saddest but most epic romantic story I've ever heard in my life.
yeah, I know. My wife found like the article. She's like, "Check this out." I was like, "What the fuck?" And then, kind of I was planning on like writing two records, one that was heavier and one that was mellower, and I was like, just kind of thought that would be a pretty crazy inspiration to try to write around. So
Do you think of these concepts before every single album? Like, is that how the songwriting initially starts in a way for Ivy, or do you almost and do you feel that also like that these concepts help influence the sound of the music?
the yeah, the concepts definitely influence the sound. Kind of like right now, I'm sort of starting to plan a new record, and this one doesn't. I'm not starting with any sort of concept. I'm starting with like how do I want to like what instrumentation should there be and kind of like what overall mood do I want to try to kind of portray. So this one is definitely starting uh, more organically, and then I think the first Ivy record, Colony, that one that one I was just kind of messing around. Like I'd been working on some projects that didn't really like come together, and I'd been doing all this kind of experimental keyboard stuff, and I didn't actually use that material, but I was like, oh, I can probably write something, start a new project, and just have it be me and kind of explore new sounds for me. And
Yeah. Has there ever been a time where maybe like your personal life or personal experiences was sort of like a subject matter that you addressed in Ivy, or do you try to use Ivy as like a complete escape from your personal reality?
yeah, Ivy I use as an escape. I think a Storm of Light is definitely more like, I mean, it's not personal. Actually, some of it is personal, but it's also rooted in sort of politics and religion and kind of like larger scale, like human condition kind of stuff, but also also personal stuff. That there's songs about like family members and stuff that they don't know and they never will. But um, so yeah, Ivy, I started it more as an escape. Like, okay, I'm not going to turn it into any sort of like punk rock political kind of thing. I'm gonna try to specifically like steer clear of that.
Yeah. Well, do you like to leave the music open to interpretation, or with like having these certain subject matters, do you maybe try to engage the listener, like do you try to maybe inform the listener or engage them into a story or a concept as much as the music itself?
I, I like to I like to present like the option kind of for people to explore what my influences may have been for each record. Um, but at the same time, I don't think it's important. Like, it's funny, even with like with Astromalite and with Neurosis as well. Like, there were people that would be in the front row and they would never even look at the visuals at all, and they would be sort of just eyes closed, taking everything in and experiencing their own thing. And it's funny because when I saw Neurosis without visuals, um, at Saint Vitus. Um, that was kind of the first time I had seen them without visuals, and I mean, I still had a lot of the imagery from the visuals I created for the songs. Like I could see it as they were playing, but it was a cool experience. So I think like it's important to, um, I don't know. There's depth there if people want it, but I think it should also work just for people to trip out and take what they want from it. I guess. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I've always loved artists, and this is something I really love about Ivy too. Like, there is always like my favorite albums that I just like to sit back and listen to and, not care about anything else. But I also love albums that have like a presentation, where the presentation is part of the experience. And that's what I really consider Ivy. I mean, it's a musical project, of course. That's, it's the industry. That's how they're always going to talk about it. But I really consider Ivy to be ultimately more of an experience, more so than just
no,
an album, because I think that the sounds are very atmospheric. I'm able to get a sense of imagery just by listening to it, and then you telling me about these concepts, and having ear split working with you and having them write the press releases always helps to engage in it too. But
yeah, definitely.
yeah, but like I've always thought that that's what Ivy is. It's an experience. Your catalog is an experience. I don't consider it to just be a musical catalog.
Cool. That's awesome. That's kind of, I mean, yeah, like I have these like dreams of being able to play, with like string section and like, kind of expand, like turn the live experience into more of that as well. Kind of just depends on, the size of shows and what, what's what options present themselves. But I do kind of write with like the idea of like each record is like what would I need to actually pull it off completely live rather than have like any sort of you know computer tracks or anything. So
Yeah. And another question I have is kind of going back to the concepts. Do you almost consider, like, do you look for this inspiration? Do you like have to go out and look for it? Like, do you consider maybe like research or observation to be just as much part of the songwriting process, or does inspiration like strike when you sort of like least expect it?
I think it's both. I've definitely done like a lot of research on various records, not necessarily Ivy, but A Storm of Light and like one record, Forgive Us Our Trespasses. Most of the lyrics are all from kind of like national. They're like manipulated national anthem songs from different countries around the world. So that kind of stuff, like even the lyrics can inform ideas about the music. But uh, Ivy Ivy works both ways. I think for for grinding teeth and zero sleep, I had to kind of I went way outside of my comfort zone with that. Like I wrote a bunch of stuff and then I had a girl sing all of it, and then I had wrote all these string parts, and then worked with like an orchestrator who wrote out all the sheet music, and then we had the strings recorded in Vienna, and I wasn't actually there for any of that stuff, unfortunately. But um, So that, I mean, that's just like kind of researching like the methodology, or like how am I going to actually physically pull this stuff off. So now, yeah, now I don't know like what I'm, the next one I'm kind of right now I'm researching just like uh various kind of like folk music, and not that I want it to sound like that, but just kind of like weird instrumentation, and like how I can sort of mix the worlds of like heavy and like atmospheric, but pull kind of different instruments into the mix without it being like kitschy or something.
You should look up the band from Italy called All My Faith Lost. I don't know if you've ever listened to them, but
No, what is it?
All My Faith Lost. Ear Split works with
Okay.
them too, actually, and they just put out their first album in 11 years, and like the music is like so dark and so ambient and so sad, but it has like folk instrumentation behind it. It's like so
Oh,
beautiful, but it's like the most beautiful sound of despair you'll ever hear.
oh, cool.
Yeah, so little
Awesome.
reference. I love recommending things to people for art.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and
Um,
do you feel that with Obsidian and having these concepts? Of course, like the music is meant to be listened to chronologically, right? Like with Obsidian, you need to start off with a track such as Octagon and end it with the body compels. You can't like listen to it on shuffle and expect to get the full context of the album, right?
well, I mean, yeah, I guess you wouldn't get the context of the record, but hopefully, if it is on shuffle, it can. It's just like a cool, moment. Whatever. Like my wife, what she only listens to iPod shuffle, really. So like sometimes, and she listens to a lot of atmospheric stuff, and sometimes Ivy comes on, and like I think it works. Like it
Yeah.
should work like that, because otherwise, I feel like you're trying to demand too much attention. Like you can only listen to this if you listen to the full thing. Or
I love that you said that when an artist demands too much attention. I think that that's actually, there is such a thing that you could do with the art, and then that leaves no room to really enjoy it. So for you to say that was like something I've wanted to hear an artist say for a while. And
oh, cool.
it's a good point too, because like I've compared Ivy to a band like High Lung, for example, but I also think that
Mhm.
like I could jam this, like I would love to see you play a show with like Aphex Twin or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. I don't understand why. I read an article, they labeled him as the ninth scariest musical artist of all time. Like, I'm like, really? Like,
Really?
yeah,
Actually?
I listen to Aphex Twin the most when I'm like I was listening to them when I was getting my COVID vaccine. Like they calm me down. Like Aphex Twin calms me down. Like,
Maybe it's like people taking away the Chris Cunningham music videos.
yeah,
Is that? I mean, they're phenomenal videos, but it's definitely like a horror thing. But if you were just to take the the music outside of that, especially the one with like all the little kids running around like the downtown, like it looks like New York or something, like with his face on, and it's like just this total horror show, but the music doesn't really evoke that.
yeah. I don't know. I've always considered it to be I've always considered to be the ultimate elevator music, but that's just me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he does some amazing stuff. It's
yeah.
really like inspiring to like it's, for me it's inspiring, but it's not even something I can like consider like trying to emulate, or it's like it's just so far away from.
I think you could really do it. That would be a great show though, to see Ivy with Aphex Twin. I think that would be a great show. Like,
That'd be, yeah.
yeah, let's start up bombarding promoters with pitches. Um,
Sounds good to me.
yeah. And another question I really wanted to ask you is being you work in multiple mediums between sonic art and visual art, and I've always loved, like I've always said that there needs to be one day a big show at the MoMA with like your artwork, with Jacob Bannon's artwork and John Baisley's artwork and Mike Shinoda's artwork. Like that would be something really intriguing. But like, is there maybe a similar creative energy that you channel into visual art as you do with music, or do you consider the two mediums to be completely separate mind frames altogether?
No, they really bleed together for me. I think, especially with if it's my projects and I'm doing like the print design and the album art and the music, it's all like really tightly mixed because kind of I may already have like an idea for the uh, artwork before I even start writing. And not always, but sometimes. And then sometimes it's a reverse. But I think it's kind of like it's a very similar process for me. It's you basically are starting with little bits of partial ideas and like rough ideas, and you're pulling from yourself and from like the kind of world around you to like create, to like fine tune and like pull that either the music or the art like out and finalize it and make it real. And I think like mixing music and then like finally like a final cleanup of like an image artwork is very similar, I think, to me.
Well, do you when you are like making the artwork for like Neurosis, for example, or something, like do you prefer to like have music there to get a vision of how you want it, or do when you make art with other people they sort of give you a direction of what they want?
That also that changes. Like with Neurosis, I definitely heard all the music before we actually no. I heard most of the time it was demos of the songs, and then like for Given to the Rising, I pitched an idea before just off the demos, and then I actually went to Europe and photographed a bunch of stuff specifically for that. But then with like Soundgarden for King Animal, Chris actually really liked the Given to the Rising artwork, and he was like, "Can we use that?" And I was like, "No, you can't use that. It's already an album cover." So he had like a couple songs. He sent me a lot of lyrics, and the lyrics were like really cool. There's one Bones of Birds and Blood on the Valley Floor, and so we talked about like kind of concepts, and that happened with the whole band. And Kim wanted something more dark, and Matt wanted something more light, and so I actually made that artwork before I ever heard any of the music. And then Chris told me that they titled the record basically based off of the artwork. So it's pretty cool. Like
That
it's just
that had to have been a
yeah,
great honor.
yeah. That was crazy when he told me that. So
And
very very cool.
do you find though, like, and I asked this with when I was interviewing Jacob Bannon about this, and like I asked him, like, in the end, and I feel this way being an artist myself. I've done album art covers and stuff for the underground, but like, do you almost feel like when another artist gives you a direction of what they want, it almost feels, does it feel almost kind of like it's hindering your creative mind? I don't want to say hindering your creative mind, but it feels less creative because you are doing something for the commission of somebody else, or does it enhance the creativity because it is technically a collaboration?
It can work both ways. The way I prefer to work is to get like, okay, send me your lyrics, send me what if you had a reference what the album was about. If if there's any work of mine that you like, or is there any work of something I like to get a real broad sort of base of somewhere to start, because otherwise, if you're not starting from a similar space with the musical artist, like I think the chances of ending up with a cover that they're gonna like is gonna be much harder.
Yeah.
I working on a cover for a band now, and they're like really big Soundgarden fans, and they like the guy, like the main guy is like very visual, and he sent these ideas like fully sketched out, and they were cool ideas, but I just explained, like it's not really the way I work. Even with Soundgarden, like I got some lyrics and kind of we talked about things, but as far as what ended up on that record cover, like was completely up to me. And they were cool with it. Like he was like, okay, so we kind of took it a step back, and then I knew like kind of what he was wanting initially, uh, which was like really far outside of kind of my body of work, which was weird. But so we got to a place where I was like, all right, well, this is the aesthetic you want, and like this is like the kind of message. Like, what if we do this? And they're and I just finished it, and they're really happy with it. So I guess, yeah, I think every project is just a little bit different. You know, it's like
Yeah.
every relationship with bands is a little bit different, and some people I talk to a lot, and some people I've only talked to their managers, or some people like been doing like I've done 3 record covers for Ringo Starr, which is
Wow.
really insane. But I've never talked to his management. I've never talked to him. And then like when they want to put something out, he's so big that they just call like the record label, and they're like, "This is coming out." And then the record label's like, they send out a couple, like they hire a few people just to come up with ideas, and literally have like half of the day to like pitch these ideas, and then either they pick it or they don't.
Okay.
So that totally different.
Yeah, there's always like those different methods of doing it, and that ultimately affects on how you make it too. Like I'd imagine that like, how different could it have been, that album artwork would have turned out if Ringo Starr came up, knocked on your front door, and said, "Hey, can you do an album cover for me?" I mean, I would probably pass
Yeah,
out, but like,
yeah. It would be completely different because they also are starting with an image of Ringo because that's like his thing. Like if you look at Ringo Starr album covers, it's basically he's on the cover and then kind of whatever else is happening around that. Um, so it's kind of like, all right, here's 2 pictures of him. Let me know what you got. You know, so it's it's such a different process that it's impossible to even compare like to the things with Soundgarden where like I'll talk to Kim for like 2 or 3 weeks, you know, like off and on about like colors and like what like we haven't done this color, like let's try to shift this into that direction, and then, you know, and then the artwork can take like a month or 6 months. Like I finished King Animal almost a year before it came out. The artwork was done.
wow.
So like, yeah, it's just, and then with Ringo Starr, like I literally like if Universal called me on like Monday, they released like the digital version of that record cover like the next Monday. Like it's just like crazy. But I guess Ringo just has like enough power and clap to just say this is coming out, and I don't think anyone's going to tell him no. So it's kind of amazing.
Fair enough. Does it? And let me ask you. This is actually almost asking for an opinion for other artists out there. Do you think it's cool to use like? Do you sometimes use like other photo references, whether it's through art history or even like like do you sometimes use other visual references to help influence that, or do you think it comes strictly from the subconscious, or just completely from your own vision?
I definitely use references, especially I I kind of work in like a bunch of different mediums as far as print. I do like fully digital, like 3D, or like the photo composite stuff, or like original photography. Like the A Storm of Light Anthracene is my wife in like a full SWAT uniform holding a dove. Like, and that was all real. And so I was, I had to like pull references for like how I wanted to light stuff, and then like then you're like turning into like what gear do I need to have and like that kind of stuff as well. So, and then I think for Steve Von Till for Harvest Man, I think it's In a Dark Tongue, I think is the album. He had a reference from a old like Stravinsky. It's The Rite of Spring, but it's these kind of like weird figures, and So I kind of took that reference and turned it into this like shaman with like a elk head with like these figures around him in the forest.
What about the
So
Fires Within Fires cover? Did you do that for Neurosis or
which one? Oh
Fires?
no.
Okay, because I was about to say like that had to have been a painting. I thought maybe you but
Yeah, that was Thomas Hooper, I
okay,
think. Like I actually like doing some reissue stuff for them right now, but I stopped uh, being like in Neurosis in 2012,
okay,
just because they we kind of I was like kind of getting tired of touring as like a visual artist because I don't know tours kind of for me like tours not really that fun if you're not playing and
yeah. I gotta imagine like unless if you are the band on stage or you're in the like the crew where you have to be constantly focused the whole time. It's got to be a little like dreadful.
yeah, my wife absolutely hates it. She's like, I'm like, are you sure you don't want to come to Europe? She's like, yep, not interested. But like, and at the same time, they were kind of like questioning whether they needed visuals, and the visuals are they can also be pretty limiting as far as there's only visuals for X amount of songs, and it takes X amount of time to create visuals for a new song, and and then kind of like right before that, I was still running everything off of like DVDs and stuff like that, so it was very hard to change the order of the sets and stuff like that. So
Okay.
it kind of we both came to like a mutual sort of thing, like, all right, well, let's just cut the visuals and like we'll still work together, but it's like going to be in like a less of a like less. I'm not going to be the dedicated person, so
Fair enough.
which is
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today and for such a great conversation. I definitely feel inspired from this interview a lot. I'm probably going to paint right after this interview. Is there just anything?
awesome.
Yeah, that's why I do these interviews, artistic research. But is there just anything else that you would like to promote for Ivy with the release of Obsidian? Can we maybe do some live shows sometime soon? Like there's a stage at St. Vitus with your name on it for a good
Oh
Obsidian in
yeah,
full show.
actually that's the only. Or no, I played two shows in the United States. One is at St. Vitus, and then one was at oh shit, I forgot the name of it. It's like in the Lower East Side, but
Mercury Lounge?
yeah, I really, huh?
Was it Mercury Lounge?
No, not Mir. It's like a weird. I'll have to look it up. I know Mono played there at some point.
Uh,
Like it had shows for a while, and then it kind of didn't, and then it's like I think it's mainly like a jazz place or
not
something.
Bowery Electric, right?
It's no. I'll look it up. I'll send it to you.
All right.
Yeah, I really hope it's like it's really hard to get like kind of like a booking agent with this kind of stuff because I think they're just like they're all a little bit like confused by it, and which is fine. It's so I have to kind of try to be more proactive as far as
Complimentary edibles at
actually.
the door. Complimentary edibles at the door. Then they'll understand.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Yeah, that will sell tickets in a heartbeat.
Then yeah, it probably wouldn't make any money because there's so much edibles are so expensive.
Yeah, fuck. Well, no, just get those shitty gummies. I mean, it'll get some people messed up, but
Yeah,
but
there you
yeah.
go.
But I definitely hope to see you live. Thanks again so much, Josh. Everybody, we are here with
Yeah.
Josh. We are here with Josh of Ivy. Be sure to check out Obsidian if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.